Everyone thought it was just an ordinary taxi ride. But the retired driver, Joseph, could tell from his passengers' conversations that they were planning a crime. 3 armed men in the back seat were traveling with Joseph, unaware that the time had come to use tactics he'd learned 30 years ago. From which city in the world are you watching this story today? If stories like this move you, consider subscribing to Unseen Legends for more tales of quiet heroes walking among us. Saturday evening, 10:30 p.m., Joseph Martinez was driving his taxi through the drizzling streets of Chicago's South Side. At 67 years old, he had been working behind the wheel of a yellow cab for 11 years. In his worn leather jacket, baseball cap, and calm demeanor, he looked like an ordinary night shift driver. Nobody knew Joseph's past. To customers, he was just reliable Joe, working all hours of the night, driving safely, not talking much, humbly accepting tips. No one knew that between 1968 and 1971, he had served 3 tours in Vietnam as a Marine and earned a Purple Heart. This night, 3 men got into the taxi. They boarded on Michigan Avenue, in their 30s, dressed in dark clothing. Joseph examined them through his rearview mirror. He had been driving a taxi in the city for years and knew how to read people. "Go to Roosevelt Road," said the man in the middle. Joseph started moving, but the conversations from the back seat caught his attention. "The plan is simple," murmured the man on the left. "The bank will be completely empty at 11:45 p.m. Only 1 security guard." Joseph began to listen. After years of driving taxi, he'd heard all kinds of conversations, but this was different. "Are the guns ready?" asked the one on the right. "Yes, we go in, empty the safe, get out in 5 minutes. Joseph's blood ran cold. These men were planning a bank robbery, and Joseph was driving them to the crime scene. "Driver, speed up," said the man in the middle. "There's traffic, sir. I'm going as fast as I can," Joseph said calmly, but he was making plans in his mind. The tactics he'd learned in Vietnam were coming back. First, he assessed the situation. 3 armed men, probably experienced criminals, himself elderly, but experienced combat veteran. Advantages. Vehicle control was his. He knew the city well. He had a radio. "Joe, how long have you been driving?" asked the man on the left. 11 years, sir. Ever get in trouble with police?" Joseph answered carefully. "No, sir. I have a clean record." Actually, they were testing him, trying to figure out if he was trustworthy. "Good, because tonight you're going to forget what you see." "What am I going to see, sir?" "I'm just going to drop you off where you want." But Joseph was making his plan. There were 15 minutes to Roosevelt Road. He had to act within this time. When they approached the first stop, Joseph tried something. "Sir, gas is running low. I need to get gas for a minute." "No," said the one in the middle harshly. "Go straight." Joseph understood. These men were very hasty and nervous. They weren't amateurs, but they were under stress. They stopped at a traffic light. Joseph seized the opportunity. He reached for his radio. "What are you doing?" asked the man on the right. "Reporting status to dispatch. Routine procedure." Actually, Joseph was trying to send an emergency code. The taxi company had a connection with police. "Dispatch, this is car 47, going to Roosevelt Road, ETA 15 minutes. Normally he wouldn't make such a report, but the operator was listening carefully. "Car 47, received. Everything okay?" "Yes, normal ride, heavy traffic, but we're managing." Heavy traffic was the emergency code word. The operator understood. The men hadn't noticed Joseph's clever move. They continued their conversation. "I have the bank manager's house keys," said the one in the middle. "We'll take his family hostage afterwards." Joseph's stomach turned. Not just bank robbery, they were also planning family hostage taking. Now it was time to act. Joseph remembered the survival tactics he'd learned 30 years ago in Vietnam. At the next turn, Joseph braked suddenly. "Sorry, cat ran into the road." "Drive carefully, old man," shouted the one on the left. But Joseph had actually positioned the taxi strategically. The police station was 2 blocks away. "Joe, this road doesn't go to Roosevelt Road," said the man in the middle, suspiciously. "There's traffic. I'm going another route." "Bullshit. You're fooling us." The man in the middle pulled out a gun from his jacket. "Stop the car and turn around." Joseph remained calm. "Okay, sir, stay calm." But he used the Vietnam-era radio device he held in his left hand. He pressed the hidden emergency button. "Last warning, driver. Take us to the right place," or just then police sirens were heard. Distant but approaching. "What's happening?" The men panicked. "I don't know, sir. Probably another incident." But Joseph knew. His emergency call had worked. "Police are coming." "You reported us," shouted the man in the middle. "No, sir. I swear." The man on the left also pulled out a gun. "This old man sold us out." Joseph suddenly turned the steering wheel. The taxi stopped in a controlled manner at the curb. Evasive maneuvering he'd learned in Vietnam. "Get out," they shouted. But Joseph had pressed the door lock button. The men were trapped. Police cars appeared. Joseph raised his hand and signaled. "Damn it, this was a trap," screamed the man in the middle. Police approached the taxi. An announcement came from the megaphone. "Those in the vehicle, raise your hands where we can see them." Joseph opened his window. "Officer, I have 3 armed suspects. They're planning a bank robbery." "Understood. We've got it." The men surrendered. "Guns, bank plans, and the manager's home address were found on them. Detective Sarah Wilson questioned Joseph. "Mr. Martinez, how did you stay so calm?" "Long story, detective. Tell me." Joseph hesitated. "I fought in Vietnam. 3 tours. I've experienced such situations." "Which unit?" "1st Marine Division, 1968. Combat veteran." "Yes, but now I'm just a taxi driver." "Your radio use was professional. How do you know emergency codes?" "Learned in the military. Communication protocols. But it was also in company training." Wilson took notes. "Mr. Martinez, tonight you stopped 3 criminals. You probably prevented a bank robbery and family hostage situation." "I just did my job." "No, more than that. FBI wants to talk to you." The following week, when Joseph returned to the taxi company, everything was different. His colleagues saw him differently. Dispatcher Mike approached. "Joe, you're a real hero." "I was just lucky." "No, you were experienced. A normal driver would panic in this situation." Young driver Carlos asked, "Mr. Joe, did you really fight in Vietnam?" "Long time ago, Carlos. Different world. But you still have the skills. Some things aren't forgotten. But now I live a peaceful life." FBI agent Turner came. "Mr. Martinez, would you like part-time consulting, surveillance training?" Joseph thought, 1 day a week is possible. "But I won't quit my taxi." "Why taxi?" "Because I protect this city. I'm on the streets every night, serving people." Chicago's most unusual taxi driver, the man who catches criminals while carrying passengers. The truth was, Joseph loved both. Sometimes the most extraordinary people hide in the most ordinary places. Men like Joseph drive taxis, but their eyes still see dangers. Their skills don't rust. Their training doesn't sleep. The next time you see a taxi driver, remember, they might be protecting you in ways you never imagined. Have you ever met someone who appeared ordinary but had an extraordinary background? Tell us in the comments, and if you want to hear more stories about quiet protectors like Joseph Martinez, subscribe to Unseen Legends, because sometimes the best security is hidden behind a taxi steering wheel. This story is a work of fiction created to honor the spirit of service. Any resemblance to actual persons or events is purely coincidental.